Hey, welcome back. Today I want to show you several of the homemade snacks I've been making lately. They're all budget friendly, kid friendly. Most of them come together really quickly and they're super easy too. I've got a little balance between homemade from scratch and semi-homemade too. So those short on time might really enjoy these. So let's get started. One of the first snacks I made this week was crispy chickpeas. Now I have never made them before today, so maybe if you've made them before, you can give me some tips or tricks. But this is what I gathered from several recipes that I actually looked into first before trying my own recipe here. So first, I just drained and rinsed a can of chickpeas and then put it on a clean kitchen towel and rolled them in the towel to release some of these skins here. And those just make the chickpeas a little extra chewy. So I'm just going to try to remove some of them. It's not really that big of a deal though. So if you want to skip that step, you definitely can. Then I lined a baking sheet with parchment for easy cleanup and then just poured some avocado oil on top. You could probably use olive oil or really any neutral oil that you want for this. And once those are all coated with the oil, I'll just bake these for about 20 to 30 minutes at 425 degrees Fahrenheit, just till they get nice and crispy. Now, I do want to mention that as they cook, they're going to pop and kind of make a little bit of a mess in the oven. Now, I don't know if I should cover them next time to kind of avoid that. You can see a bunch of chickpeas on the bottom of my oven, but I did stir it halfway through. And then after they came out, immediately I decided to put the seasoning on top. Next time, I think I'll go ahead and just season them with the olive oil and bake them just like that, because I feel the seasoning would just stick a little bit better if I just bake it with the seasoning on top. But I did a couple different versions here, one with a caramelized butter seasoning I had on hand, and the others with salt. And then I added a little bit of paprika and some garlic powder to one, then to the others some chili powder, paprika, garlic powder, and a few other things to this one as well, maybe onion powder. But they all turned out really delicious. And I think this is a really fun idea to kind of test out some of the seasonings you have in your house and just see what you love. And I think these would be really good on top of salads as well. So they're really versatile. Now, I do want to note that I did try the air fryer just as an experiment. The recipes I looked at didn't mention the air fryer, but I just wanted to see how it went. Now, every time I opened the air fryer, chickpeas popped everywhere. So I have to say, I do not recommend the air fryer. Just use a regular oven. But with these ones, I decided to use this dill seasoning mix that I had on hand that I have not used yet. And these turned out delicious as well. So I'm excited just to try all of the different seasonings I have on hand and make all kinds of different snacks with these. They're very kid friendly too, just depending on the types of seasonings that you add. And if you've ever made these yourself, please tell me what seasonings you like to use, because I feel like there are so many combinations, and I would even love some recommendations for ideas you might have to make these even more delicious. Now, this next recipe, I'm going to start by making homemade peanut butter. You may have seen me do this a couple times before. I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time. And somebody mentioned in the comments once they don't have time to make homemade peanut butter, and that's fine. If you have no time at all, obviously you can just pick up the peanut butter, but I really like to just make it myself. It really is super fast. I just add some peanuts to a food processor and let it puree for about 8 to 10 minutes. This time, I'm also going to be adding in some milled flax seeds. I'm just going to add about a quarter cup because this is my first time trying the peanut butter with milled flax. But that's one thing that's great about making your own peanut butter is you can add chia seeds, milled flax, some almonds, any kind of nuts or seeds that you love, and just really make this your own. And if you haven't tried homemade peanut butter before, you have definitely got to try it. It's so good. Now that I've got my homemade peanut butter, I'm going to go ahead and make some granola bars, which are my favorite. I'm going to start with some old-fashioned rolled oats. And to my mixing bowl, I'm going to add 2 cups of rolled oats. Then I'll be adding 2/3 of a cup of peanut butter, or any nut butter that you like. That will work just fine for this. Next, I'm going to use a little less than 1/3 cup of honey, and you can use any sweetener that you like for this. I just find that honey helps everything stick together really well. And if you want to add less honey to make it less sticky, you can kind of play around with it. Next, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Oh gosh, my husband must have closed that. All right, and this is vanilla extract that I make myself. And I just use vanilla bean pods that I got from Amazon. They're organic. And I do have those in my storefront if you want to check those out. It's really easy to make, and it's a lot more cost effective if you do a good amount of baking every year or things like this. To definitely make your own. I think it costs a lot less that way, at least for me it did. Now to bring out the sweetness, I am going to use a little bit of salt, but that is optional. I just find that it tastes just a little bit better with a little touch of salt. And then I've got my Aldi mini chocolate chips, my favorite. These are the semi-sweet. I'll also be adding about 1/3 of a cup of these mini chocolate chips. I just find the mini chocolate chips work a little bit better for something like this, because then I can get more chocolate chips in every bite. But you can use regular chocolate chips, you can use non-dairy chocolate chips, whatever you want, whatever you have on hand. Or you could even chop some chocolate. Now we're just going to mix this up, and it will be quite sticky. It might look dry at first, just keep mixing it though, because it will come together. So as you can see, it kind of looks dry right now. Looks like a lot of the oats are not getting incorporated. We're just gonna keep on stirring until everything gets nice and incorporated. Just takes a couple of stirs. I like to kind of flatten it here just to kind of get it all going. This is such an easy recipe, and this is a really fun treat for me and the kids, and I love to have these on hand as often as possible. They're very addicting though, so I'm just warning you, if you're gonna make these, they're probably not gonna last long in your house because you're gonna eat them all up pretty quickly. What's nice though is you can add some chia seeds, or if you don't want chocolate chips, you can do fruit instead. Maybe some chopped peanuts would be good. Maybe some sort of cherries, dried cranberries. That would all be really good with this too. So you can really make this your own. You could even do chocolate and cranberries and almonds. Oh my gosh, there's just so many options. All right, so now you can see that everything really came together nicely. Everything looks like it's incorporated really evenly. Now we're just gonna put this in a casserole dish like this one. I like to use this 8x8 dish, but you can use any dish that you want. It really doesn't matter. You can form it any way that you want, because this is a nice mixture here that really you can kind of work with it. If you don't have a casserole dish, you could even use maybe a baking like sheet and just press it down and just form whatever shape you want. A square, rectangle. And you really want to make sure that you push that mixture in really well, because if you don't, then the bars tend to fall apart. So I just like to make sure that it is really pressed in well. And if you want, you can put a piece of parchment and then maybe take the bottom of a cup or a measuring cup and just kind of run it along to make sure it's nice and packed in. So you can do that. I've done this several times and I find a spatula works just fine for me. All right, look how beautiful. Now I'm just gonna put the lid on. I like these little Pyrex dishes with the lid because it makes it easier. I'm gonna throw this in the freezer for a couple of hours to get it to set, and then I'll take it out and it'll be ready to slice. With the leftover peanut butter, I just like to store that in a mason jar with one of these plastic reusable storage lids. I do have those in my storefront if you want to take a look. They're really great for something like this. Now, I did forget one step. I forgot to put parchment paper in the casserole dish before I put the bars in. It's a lot more difficult to get the granola bars out in one whole piece if there isn't any parchment. So do put parchment in the casserole dish before you pour the mixture in, then put it in the freezer for an hour. And after it's been in the freezer for an hour, it's set and ready to slice. And freezing it just makes it easier to slice and keeps them together better. Now I'm just gonna slice my bars into 12 pieces. But you can definitely make them in little squares, or you can make them bigger if you like. However you want to cut them, they're going to come out perfect like this every single time. You've got to try this recipe. It's so good. Now, with similar ingredients, I'm going to make something a little different here. My mom sent me this recipe, so I'm not exactly sure where she got this recipe from, but I'll have the details in the description for you. So to a mixing bowl, I'm adding oats, milled flax, chia seeds, a little bit of salt, some mini chocolate chips again, some of that homemade peanut butter that I just made, and some honey. So you can see it's very similar ingredients to the granola bars, just made a little bit differently. Now I'm just going to go ahead and mix this up until it's completely combined, and then I'm going to cover that and refrigerate it until it's set. And that should take about 20 or 30 minutes. And after it's completely set, then we'll take it out of the refrigerator, and we're going to start making some balls with these. And so they kind of remind me of a chocolate chip oat cookie, and they are absolutely delicious. And this is basically all we're going to do now is we're just going to roll them, make sure we pack them tightly so they stick together, and then I'm just going to refrigerate them for a little bit just to make sure they're nice and set before I put them in an airtight container. And I stored them in the refrigerator, and I think they should last a couple weeks, maybe more. I loved these. My husband devoured them. He loved the cinnamon. I think that would be even better without cinnamon, but I think that's just personal taste. taste. I'm definitely going to be making these again. They are so, so good. Great little snack. Now, this next recipe is another first for me. A lot of people mentioned that I should make this from scratch, and I honestly have never done it before because I never really had the ingredients on hand. I am making homemade hummus, and I'm starting by toasting some sesame seeds in a dry pan until they're nice and golden brown. And I guess this is how you make tahini, which I had no idea. I actually ended up picking up some to try in a different recipe, but I didn't realize that I could make it from scratch. And I'm just adding some avocado oil. I'm going to put the recipe down below in the description of the specific one that I'm trying. She shows how to make the hummus and the tahini and everything from scratch. I think I didn't do it quite right though. I think I was supposed to puree these sesame seeds until they became sort of liquefied and drippy, but I didn't do that. And so the texture of the sesame seeds, it wasn't as saucy as I think you could make it. So that's something I would love some tips on. If you've ever made your own tahini before, let me know how to do that properly, because I definitely didn't do that right, but the flavors were there. Then I just added some lemon juice here and just pureed that until it was all together. And you can see at this point that the texture does not look quite right for tahini, but I just continued because I wanted to see what the flavors would end up being like since it was my first time. I added some garlic. I just went ahead and grated that really finely, and then added a couple tablespoons of really nice olive oil, some cumin, and some salt, and just gave that a blend. And it was supposed to get more fluffy. She said that's one of the secrets to a really good hummus, kind of really blending the tahini and all those ingredients together until it was a really nice texture. But since I didn't do the tahini right, I think it wasn't quite right. But I grabbed my can of chickpeas and just strained out the aquafaba. Of course, you can save the aquafaba for something later on. And I removed some of the skins of the chickpeas just like we did earlier in this video. And I tried to remove as many as I could this time because I wanted to make sure the texture was right for this hummus, but I didn't remove them all. And I think it's probably optional depending on how good your food processor or blender is. You might be able to even just skip that step. So I just added half of the chickpeas, blended, and then added the other half of the chickpeas after that. And once those were all blended up, I added just a couple tablespoons of cold water. But the recipe says that you can use some of the aquafaba instead of water. So I think that's just personal preference. And once this was all blended up and I opened it up, I was really surprised because it looked and tasted identical to the hummus I get at the store. And my husband devoured this, and there's my dog hoping he'll get a taste too. But I definitely recommend trying this. Please give me all your tips though. If you make homemade hummus, tell me what I did wrong and what I can do better for next time, because I'm definitely trying this again. It was relatively easy. So I love that. Now, this next recipe is just a very simple home popped kettle corn. I just add a little bit of oil to the bottom of a pot here and add my kernels, about 1/4 cup, and about a large heaping tablespoon of sugar. And you can use probably any sweetener that you like. And then I'm just going to go ahead and heat that on medium. Once I hear popping, I just shake the pot to make sure that nothing burns on the bottom, because the sugar gets really hot. So if you just leave it, sometimes it'll burn the bottom kernels. So just give it a good shake. And then once that's all popped and you stop hearing popping, just wait 3 seconds. If you don't hear another pop, that means that the popcorn is completely done and you can serve it up. This is just one of my favorite easy homemade snacks, and kernels are so inexpensive and I can make them any way I like. I can add butter, I can add salt, but this kettle corn is a game changer. If you haven't made homemade kettle corn before like this, it's so fast, so easy. Probably takes about 5 minutes, and I think it'll surprise you how delicious it is. You'll probably want to make a second bowl. I always do. It's just so, so good. This next recipe is one that I saw on social media. It's just using a box of spice cake mix and a can of pumpkin puree. And that's all you're supposed to mix together. And it's supposed to make a really delicious pumpkin cake. So I thought I'm going to give that a go. But instead of making cake, I'm going to mix this together and make sort of drop cookies with this. So the mixture did come together really nicely, and it was a very thick batter. And I think this would make a really lovely cake, just adding it to a casserole dish and baking it. But then you've got to put some sort of cream cheese frosting or maybe a buttercream on top, because this particular dessert wasn't super sweet. And I actually ended up serving this for breakfast. My son absolutely loved these because I just dropped them kind of like cookies on a tray here and baked them until a toothpick came out clean. And I just kept them in the refrigerator for the week, and my son loved them. So I definitely recommend giving that one a try. Now next, I'm actually going to be making some Chex Mix. Now last year was the first year that I've ever made Chex Mix. I had never made it before, and I got a few tips and tricks, and one of the biggest tips that I got was to use a giant roasting pan, because I found that I needed to always double the batch because it was so good it got devoured. Now I just add an entire box of rice squares, an entire box of corn squares, then just eyeballed a cup or two of pretzels, and some peanuts and cashews because that's what we had on hand. And then these bagel chips are a must for me, but I always break them apart to get smaller pieces. But of course, all of these things are optional. I've heard people add bugles and all kinds of interesting ingredients, even some honeycomb cereal, I don't even know, lots of other ingredients. I would love to hear what you add because I have never seen so many variations, and I'd love to try all the different add-ins because I'm certain that I'm missing out on some other amazing additions to this. So now I'm just going to make my butter mixture. I'm just going to melt a stick and a half of butter and add some onion powder and garlic powder and Worcestershire to this, and I'll just mix it up until everything's all melted and combined. Then I bring that back over to my roasting pan, and that's when I'll pour everything on top. I saw somebody mention that they use a spray bottle to spray this on top to make it more even, but I honestly kind of like that some of the pieces are more buttery and some are not as buttery. It kind of makes it a little bit more fun to eat. So I think that's up to you. I just gave it a good mix, and to actually bake this though, I do separate it onto a couple of baking sheets just to make it a little bit more crispy and to shorten the cooking time. I like to cook this at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for about 2 hours, and I'll just mix it every 20 to 30 minutes or so until it's nice and crispy. And I think that's going to vary quite a bit depending on your oven and the temperature that it tends to be at. And I've seen some people say they only bake it for an hour, but I really like everything to be really nice and crispy. So I think it really just depends on personal preference. And I actually heard that you can get the Chex Mix seasoning in a packet, so that could be an option too. And my husband also requested that I make another batch of Chex Mix with maybe some sriracha and some ranch mix mixed together, or possibly do the pickle seasoning that I used in the beginning of this video. So I'm going to do a few different variations, and I'll let you know how those turn out too later. Now you can freeze this, but it really only lasts about a week in the pantry. So freeze all of the extra that you can't eat in time, or maybe just make another batch soon. It's really good. I am going to try to make some hot cocoa mix for the first time. I've never made it before. But I picked up some of this instant dry milk, and I think that's what people use to make their own. And I've got my mason jar. This is actually just an old spaghetti sauce jar that I picked up from Aldi. Like, it had spaghetti sauce. I just took the label off. But if you have a mason jar, you can use that. Or I also have like this nice looking, container that I got on Amazon. Sometimes I put mine in there, but I'm just gonna use the mason jar with one of these, a funnel, to just help me a little bit here. So, all right, hopefully the funnel will help. Okay, so I've got this little packet of the instant non-fat dry milk, and I'm gonna add 1 1/4 cups. Oh wow, yeah, that's definitely interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna add 1 1/4 cups. Oops. Let's just say it's probably about that package, give or take. And then I have a 1/2 cup of cocoa powder. This is just regular cocoa powder. So hopefully this will help me get this in here without making a big mess. Next, I'm gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. The salt usually brings out the sweetness. And I'll also be adding a teaspoon of cornstarch, and that's just gonna help thicken the hot cocoa so that it's a nice rich cocoa when we make it. Now I have the sweetness. I am using powdered sugar, but you could definitely experiment with other dry sweeteners if you like. I've never made this before, but I'm sure you can substitute whatever sweetener you like. I'm just gonna add about 1 cup of powdered sugar. And this is the messy part, so hopefully I can do this without making a giant mess. Now I'm gonna do my best to mix this up in this container. It was a little bit smaller than I thought. I usually use these leak-proof lids that are designed for ball jars. So look how cute though that is. If I didn't have to mix it, it would be really cute. But we're just gonna go ahead and mix it up. Make sure you use a lid that's nice and tight, of course. Oh man, this one is not as tight as I was hoping it would be. Making a little bit of a mess here, or a big mess.
So I was hoping that would work, but it didn't work as well as I thought. So I'm gonna go ahead and transfer it over to my little cocoa dish here. And this should hold just enough. I should have just started with this container, huh? I have to make things more difficult sometimes for myself. That's how we learn. All right, so getting this all nice and mixed up. All right, so that's nice and mixed together. And this should last in the pantry for about a year, I think, depending on the expiration date of the powdered milk, probably would be what I would guess. All right, so there you go, homemade cocoa mix. Let's make a cup and see what it tastes like. I'm just gonna heat up about a cup of milk in the microwave, just about like 8 ounces or so I can really get a good judge of this one. And next time, if you just have a jar, what you can do is actually put the mixture in and then cover it with wax paper and then put the lid on, and that will keep it from flying out when you mix it together. Oh, I don't know why I didn't think about that. Okay, I've got my hot milk now from the microwave. Chef Mike to the rescue for that, super fast and easy. And now I'm just gonna put maybe like a 1/4 cup, just measuring with my eyeballs, so I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. So just so you can see kind of what that looks like. This is what I would expect from cocoa. Let's see how it tastes. Oh wow, that's quite good actually. And I was also thinking I might just put a couple of mini chocolate chips to melt to make it a little bit more rich. These are like the mini chocolate chips, semi-sweet from Aldi. So you could put a couple of those in there and then add some mini marshmallows, of course. There we go. And there we go, perfect cup of cocoa. Cheers. I hope you got a little inspiration for things to make in your home, and I cannot wait to hear how they turn out for you. So definitely come back and let me know if you try anything, because I'm always looking for how you modified it and how you thought it tasted. So definitely come back and let me know. Now, if you love this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to see more. I have a lot more meal plans, recipes, and budget-friendly videos coming soon. I'm trying lots of different things. And if you have some requests for another video type, let me know down below in the comments. I'm always looking for more ideas, and I really take them seriously. Now, YouTube thinks you want to watch another video, so watch that wherever it is. Enjoy it, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.